José Antonio Maceo. José Antonio de la Caridad Maceo y Grajales is both Latino and Black. And instead of asking how I know his name, you should be asking why don't I know his name? And why is that indeed? However, lucky for you, you won't have to not know any longer. Because today I deliver this speech as a representation of a forgotten story by your own culture's Western idealization. Well, if you're from the United States, that is. However, we ourselves love to call it by its other name, America. But what is America? America spanning from Canada to Brazil, including the Caribbean, but for today we'll be focusing on the remarkable achievements of Cuba during that time period. More specifically, its well-known second-in-command, a historical leader by the name of José Antonio Maceo Grajales. How did this all start? In the 16th to 18th century, there was a popular practice that occurred, and I mean through all of America. However, in the beginning of the 19th century, the Atlantic slave trade finally ceased with its legal standard. It was now considered a crime. Seeing how the legality of the situation had switched, many American dealers in the United States seeking to keep their hold made an evaluation and moved their inclination to Cuba. This was most likely due to their booming agriculture and production of sugar and coffee. That made Cuba more particularly enticing. However, their repercussions came at a cost. Cuba was now the biggest slave colony throughout the Americas, reaching an estimation of 400,000 slaves being imported. Never mind that the real people in power, Europeans, were making the deal, such as Spain, who still had a hold on the country at the time, with a continuous threat of a large population and strong military in contrast to Cuba's 1,800,000 population. In 1865, having dealt with the oppression, the first fight for independence had begun. The 10-year-long war spanning from 1868 to 1878 had started, with a young 19-year-old Jose entering the war with one goal in mind: Cuba's independence and the abolishment of slavery. During his earlier years in the military, he was well respected among his comrades, and after his bravery in the Baragua protest, he was promoted from soldier to colonel. 5 years later, being one of the only soldiers showing motivation and will to beat the Spaniards, he was promoted to general. Then, when the 10-year-long war ended, Cuba still hadn't gained their independence. However, it did give them a higher place in the eyes of the Spaniards, letting them know that they will fight and they can fight. It wasn't much of an upgrade, but it let Cubans go into the Spanish courts and abolish slavery 8 years later after the war ended. Then in the aftermath, unfortunately, Jose was forced to leave the country. However, when the Spaniards came back and Cuba began fighting for their independence, so did he. His high position often made him a target for critique and threat merely because of the skin of his color. It wasn't on home territory, even though there were some individuals not so pleased, but on the opponents. The Spaniards said that because of the color of his skin and his place in power, he would try forming another Haiti. Haiti is a country that became a country by overthrowing their oppressors in a slave revolt. The Western world was not pleased with this, and they feared it to some degree. So when the Spaniards made that threat, it held value to possible allies, all because the army going up against them was led by a black general. However, a white scholar called their bluff and relied on the Cuba sentiment, which was based on sheer facts. Cuba was a place for Cubans, regardless of skin color. This could be due to the fact that half of Maceo's army was a conscript of Afro-Cubans. And later on, when Jose spoke out about the accusations, he only added to the truth. And he said so eloquently, something along the lines of, no, we don't see race as a barrier because we have fought together, we have died together, and the only people that talk about race are the people trying to oppress us. The environment that was created by his words and place in power with his sheer will to fight with everything he had made one thing clear to Cubans: Cubans for Cuba, one nationality as a whole regardless of skin color. Unfortunately, in the end, he was ambushed and targeted. He died on December 7th, 1896, but his will to fight lived on. 6 years later, in 1902, Cuba gained its independence. His legacy lives on to this day.